On a distant planet called Chitón, a woman gives birth while her husband, John, brings the baby to her. The couple is affectionate as they watch the baby cry, but suddenly they hear the sound of an approaching spaceship. Thinking about their next move, the wife suggests hiding the baby, but John says they will find him anyway. She asks what else they can do, and John responds that only one thing remains before they both look simultaneously toward a space pod. As the ship lands atop their tower, John busies himself entering coordinates into the pod, choosing the United States because he believes it is the most advanced area on the planet. As the pod takes off, the two watch it longingly. When the door bursts open and soldiers march in, they step aside to make way for a man sitting in a floating egg, the dictator Skorba, who bids them good morning. As the pod drifts further away, the soldiers grab the couple while Skorba interrogates them, asking John where he sent the baby. John refuses to cooperate, and Skorba threatens to press the button that will end all things. Suddenly, his daughter Ágata emerges at his side and tells him she can help. To prove her usefulness, Ágata approaches John and reads his mind, discovering that he sent the pod to a blue planet called Earth to prove his worth. Ágata boards a pod, and before it takes off, Skorba reminds her that he wants the baby alive. She vows to capture him, flying into space and managing to reach the baby's pod. Just as the baby's pod is about to reach Earth, it collides with a satellite, changing its flight path. Ágata lands in the US, while the baby's pod flies towards Spain. On Earth, a couple named Juan and Maria are driving back when the baby's pod nearly crashes into their truck. They get out of the vehicle to check it, and when the pod opens, they see the baby. Maria takes the baby in her arms and shows him to Juan, who gradually grows fond of him after initially disliking him because of his mustache. But as soon as the baby grabs Juan's index finger, he bends it backward, making Juan scream in pain. They take him home, and Juan shaves the baby's mustache. But as soon as he does, it grows back. They name him Juan, but affectionately call him Juanito and raise him as their son. As Juanito grows up, they discover he has super strength, super vision, and super speed, which he uses occasionally. But in doing so, the other children find him weird. One day, Juanito has a soccer match where he plays as a goalkeeper because he doesn't know who to pass the ball to. Feeling the pressure, he decides to use his super speed to score the goal himself. None of his teammates are happy with him when he finally scores. Afterward, his father Juan scolds him for using his powers in public. On his birthday, Juanito waits outside for his friends, but none come. Juan tries to comfort him while Maria brings the cake, just as Juanito tells them they didn't want to come because he is weird. Juan tells Juanito that those who stand out get cut down, and if he excels, people in Spain will crush him. Maria brings the cake closer and tells Juanito to make a wish. He closes his eyes and wishes to be normal, then blows out the candles, splattering most of the cake onto his parents' faces. 20 years later, he is now an adult man named Juan. Currently, Juan is sleeping on his couch when he is woken by his ringing phone. He answers and speaks with his friend and boss, Jaime, who assumes he is late again. Juan lies, but Jaime tells him he just checked his house and Juan wasn't there. Juan's excuse this time is that he was in the bathroom, leading Jaime to order him to his office immediately. Juan dresses quickly and manages to arrive before Jaime. When Jaime catches up, Juan pretends he has been working for quite a while. Juan notices the perfume Jaime is wearing and asks when he started using it. Jaime tells him that is the reason he wanted to talk to Juan in the first place, admitting to his friend that the girl he hired starts today. Juan frowns and reproaches Jaime, saying he can't treat the workplace like a dating site. But Jaime says it's practically the same thing. Jaime asks for help planning a party for her, but Juan says they've never had a welcome party before. Fed up with his friend's request, Juan leaves, telling Jaime he's just going to get breakfast. While Juan tries to retrieve a chocolate bar stuck in the vending machine, he notices a presence from outside and uses his supervision. Juan sees the new girl and realizes it's Luisa, a friend from college. He lets her in, and she thinks he is the maintenance man. A little later, they celebrate Luisa's welcome party with only Juan, Jaime, and 2 other janitors who have already finished their shifts. Luisa finds the party awkward, so she excuses herself to go to the bathroom. In the end, Luisa leaves the party just as Juan goes to get more ice. Juan then runs to the station and reaches the platform, but Luisa isn't there. Suddenly, he hears her calling him from the other side. He invites her to dinner, but she turns him down because the train is arriving. Upon boarding, Luisa is surprised when she turns around and sees Juan behind her, asking if she likes olives. The two go to a pizzeria and catch up on the past. However, their conversation is ruined when a group of noisy teenagers enters. Luisa suddenly yells at them to shut up before getting up and hitting one of them on the butt with her purse. The boy turns to Juan, asking if he's going to respond to the blow, but Juan stands his ground, trying to calm the situation. The boy threatens that he can take Juan down with a single finger, which Juan says is impossible until it happens. It turns out one of the boys knelt behind Juan's legs, making him lose his balance. Cut to the next scene. Juan sits at the station, remembering what his father told him on his birthday. He returns to reality when he hears the announcement for the last train, but a moment later, the train speeds past them as the brakes have failed. Juan sees a sign that says, "It's time, take the step," and takes this as a signal to use his powers. He runs to the next station and tries to stop the train there, but fails. He runs again to the following station, where Juan uses a fire hose along with his strength to stop the train. He manages to succeed before leaving the station, trying his hardest to remain hidden. Meanwhile, in the United States, Skorba's daughter, Ágata, has become an established industry figure as the founder of Chit Technologies. She is currently presenting her company's latest cleaning invention, the Cheetah Bot. Her presentation is interrupted when one of her men informs her that he has been found. Ágata leaves the stage while checking if they really found John's son. Unfortunately, she cannot see his face in the security camera footage, but this is enough proof for her to go see him. The next day, news of a man stopping the train spreads quickly, and everyone in the office is watching the news coverage. Luisa thinks a Spanish hero is ridiculous and believes it's a publicity stunt, while Juan tries to defend the hero. Their attention returns to the TV because news of Ágata's visit to their country becomes a hot topic. Ágata addresses the man who stopped the train, saying she would like to meet him because she believes they can do great things together. Meanwhile, at Chit Technologies headquarters in Barcelona, Ágata contacts Skorba, telling him it's time to come home because she found John's son. Skorba continues to criticize his daughter before warning her that if she doesn't have him when he arrives, he will level the earth along with her. On the other hand, Juan is on the bus, running late for his dinner with Luisa, and reports that he is only a few minutes away. Suddenly he hears a beep that only he can hear as Ágata communicates with him, but Juan thinks it's just the radio. There are two things she needs to tell him. First, that Juan should not talk to her because she cannot hear him, and second, that Juan should go see her and she will explain everything. Juan gets off the bus and walks straight to Ágata's office, where she is waiting for him. He recognizes her as the vacuum lady, while Ágata tries to flatter him. She explains that they are the same, that they come from the same planet, but Juan refuses to believe it. Shortly after, Juan decides to leave, but not before Ágata reads his mind and sees Luisa waiting for him. Ágata tries to use force by having one of her men restrain him, but Juan defeats him easily. She tries using more men to capture him, but again, Juan manages to escape.
Se te ha caído.
So she decides to use his weakness, telling her men she wants Luisa's DNA. Back at the office, Jaime leaves a note on Luisa's desk, just as the Chit vacuum begins to process what remains in Luisa's cup. The noises it makes catch Jaime's attention. He approaches and sees the data analysis the vacuum is sending. Suddenly, the vacuum starts attacking him, and luckily for him, the other two janitors are there to help him destroy the machine, just as Jaime calls Luisa to warn her. Back with Juan, he is found hunched over in front of Luisa's door when he hears her calling him from behind. Juan runs to Luisa, but she scolds him for waiting too long at the restaurant. The two fight as Luisa tells Juan he should have just said he wasn't interested in her in the first place, while he tells her something strange happened on the way. Upset by how he chooses to pull away from her, Luisa begins to insult him. Jaime sees them together, feeling betrayed. At that moment, a Chit Technologies van pulls up behind Jaime with Agata on board. She discovers that he also likes Luisa and tells him that if he comes with her, she will help him get Luisa. Juan goes to his parents' house to find out more about his birth. Both try to hide the truth, but they finally decide to reveal it after Juan tells them a girl appeared, claiming she wants to take him to another galaxy. His parents show him the space pod that brought him to Earth, and as soon as Juan touches it, a hologram of his real father, John, appears. John explains who he is and what happened on their planet. Juan is still not convinced, but his father urges him to accept who he is. Meanwhile, his mother rummages through the pod and finds a piece of fabric with an S printed on it. The next thing we know, Juan is already wearing the suit his mother made from that fabric. When the conversation turns to his ability to fly, they decide to put it to the test by having Juan practice on top of a building. He makes several gestures before his parents finally convince him to jump, only to fall face first to the ground. Annoyed by the results, Juan walks away before stumbling into a couple of kids. The kids make fun of him, and when Juan begins to levitate, the kids run away in fear. He does this a few times, landing in different places until he finally makes it home. Shortly after, Luisa knocks on his door. When Juan sees her, she immediately walks toward him to give him a hug. She tells him she knows everything now, so they go to his room to talk about it. Luisa tries to speak well of Agata, but Juan thinks there are more important matters to discuss, like what happened the night before. Agata knows nothing of this, so she has Jaime replace the fake Luisa. Jaime can't help but feel angry with him. But when Juan says he needs to talk to Jaime first about all this, because he is his friend, Jaime can't help but be moved. Agata tries to control the situation by hitting Juan and begins to fight him. Juan does his best to defend himself, but the fake Luisa has the advantage. His mother decides to intervene, hitting her with her shoes, which infuriates Juan, who then rips the head off the fake Luisa. Meanwhile, Ishmi decides to withdraw from Agata's plot, already warning Juan that Agata plans to kidnap Luisa. Agata finds out and decides to use Jaime and the real Luisa as bait. Back at home, Juan's mother urges him to save Luisa, so he flies off to see her. They meet at the Arco de Triunfo, with Juan asking her questions to see if she is the real one. When she confirms it, Luisa asks what is going on with him, and Juan finally tells her everything. She refuses to believe him until he shows her proof, and just as he is about to do so, a couple of men in costumes intervene and fight him. While all this is happening, Luisa is kidnapped by Agata's men, who tell him that if he wants to save her, he must join her and her father to rule the world. Juan immediately flies to Agata's headquarters to see Luisa and Jaime tied up. Luisa still doesn't believe he has powers, while Jaime urges him to use them so he can prove it to her. Juan decides to use supervision and tells Luisa what kind of clothes she is wearing. When he was about to untie her, Agata uses the beeping frequency, hurting Juan as he writhes on the floor. Jaime and Luisa encourage him to fight through the pain. When it doesn't work, Jaime insults him, which Luisa notices is more effective. They begin to insult him until Skorba finally lands on Earth. He meets first with Agata, showing disdain toward her and saying he is excited to see John's son. Agata leads her father and his men to where Juan is. Luisa and Jaime continue to insult Juan until he manages to burn a hole in the wall for them to escape. On the other hand, Skorba continues to compare Agata to her relatives and point out how poorly she performs compared to them. Soon, Agata discovers that Juan and the other two manage to escape, receiving a string of insults from her father. When Skorba asks her where her medal is for doing things right, she responds by cutting off his oxygen. In his final moments, Agata reads his mind and finally gains her father's approval. Now, she becomes the leader of his troops and takes his seat. Meanwhile, Juan takes Luisa and Jaime back home, where he decides to stop being a superhero and burns his suit. Skorba's ship appears later, and Agata descends from it. Juan walks toward her and says he has no plans to return with her, but Agata says that, instead, she will level the planet. Starting with this town, she finally presses the button, and the egg immediately transforms into a giant robot, and a fight ensues. Juan's father intervenes and is absorbed by Agata's machine. Meanwhile, the three kids from before watch from a distance as Juan is pummeled by Agata. He is thrown far away and lands in the middle of a soccer match, where he grabs onto the net. Back at the farm, Agata begins to chase his mother, and Juan flies back in time, only to accidentally drop the net over his mother, causing Agata to capture her as well. Juan is slammed into the ground and stomped on repeatedly by Agata's robot. Just as she is about to finish Juan off with her shaving disc, Jaime comes out to distract her. He is also absorbed, and just as Agata is about to cut Juan, Luisa arrives driving toward him and begins to insult him. Jaime and his parents start doing this too, causing Juan to regain consciousness. Before Agata can absorb Luisa, Juan tears the arm off her robot. He begins to beat the robot, while Luisa tells Juan to do what the boys did to him on their first date. Luisa parks the truck by the pool, and just as Agata is close, Juan uses his ice breath and pushes her into the pool. Jaime and the rest swim out while Juan checks on them. Juan and Luisa reunite again. When his mother asks what he plans to do with his home planet, Juan tells her he already has a plan. Skorba's ship returns to Chitón with Agata tied up. But instead of Juan, the person present there is one of the costume guys who fought him. Cut to the next scene. Luisa is turning off the alarm while Juan gets up. He puts on the suit and flies over the city, while the radio plays in the background talking about the citizens' mixed feelings toward this hero. But Juan is happy, sitting atop a statue. Sometime later, Luisa waits for Juan at a restaurant while he is late again. The two fight over his need to dedicate time to their relationship, in addition to his superhero activities. When they finally agree, Luisa tells him to pay the bill, but the waiter tells them a man at the bar already did. When they both turn to look at him, the hooded man calls him Superlópez and tells him he owes him one before sucking on a pacifier and disappearing.